Hi, hello. Welcome to this IOC Ocean Literacy Media Training. I'm Vinicius Lindoso, Communications Officer for the IOC of UNESCO, and also helping to coordinate the communications for the Ocean Decade, which I hope that you have heard of by now. But if not, I will give you a brief introduction during this small module. Clearly, in times of COVID, I am doing this from my living room / kitchen. So please don't mind the setting. I'll now show you my presentation in just 1 second. And I would like to talk to you about reporting about the Brave New Ocean. This is a general training for journalists who may or may not have a background in ocean issues. So I hope that I am general enough without being too boring for those that are already experienced in the area. So here we go. How do we go about reporting and playing the key role that media can play in bringing about this brave new ocean, or the ocean we want to see by 2030 from UNESCO, from the United Nations, and a lot of the thousands of stakeholders who have joined the Ocean Decade thus far since we began preparing it in 2017. The Ocean Decade is a 10-year global initiative that's being set forth by the United Nations. And by the United Nations, I mean all the countries that signed the resolution that set off the decade, proclaimed it in 2017. It was passed by the General Assembly of the UN, and proclaiming this 10-year period as really the time when we're going to transform ocean science. How we use it, how we generate it, and make sure that all the science that's being produced at the in the laboratories out there in the field by the thousands and thousands of oceanographers and ocean science institutions, that science being developed into solutions, whether it's tech products, whether it's policies, and so on and so forth, to respond to humanity's major challenges. Now, the Ocean Decade is about achieving the ocean we want. And that ocean has a number of particularities, elements that I list for you there. It's a clean ocean, where we know what sources of pollution are going into. We know what they are. We can address them. It's a healthy and resilient ocean that can sustain the impacts of climate change. It's a predicted ocean where we're able to track trends both in the short and long terms. It's a safe ocean where coastal communities are no longer completely at the risk of ocean hazards such as tsunami. But they can prepare for them in advance and minimize the losses both in lives and property. It's a sustainable ocean where we are producing, using its marine resources without having the impact in the long term that we currently do. It's an accessible ocean where society understands the science that's being brought about, where society understands what the benefits of the ocean are for our well-being and for our numerous day-to-day activities. And it's an ocean that's inspiring and engaging, and that can lead us into the future, not just when we speak about environmental issues, but comprehensively when we speak about sustainable development. Now, there's what I call the 3 big buts of the decade and of communicating about the ocean in general. One is that it's a huge potential, but there's very little investment going into transforming what we know about the ocean, so ocean knowledge, into solutions. The second is that there's sufficient knowledge about what we need to do, but not enough solutions coming out of that. And of course, that's connected to the fact that there's very little comparable investment. And the third one is that it's a global problem, but right now we have very limited engagement. We have, of course, communities and stakeholder groups that are heavily engaged at the moment, but those are still somewhat in the margins. They are people who already know or work in the ocean issues. So here I'm going to talk to you about the key role that media play in creating this ocean we want with the Ocean Decade, but also in general in terms of your role as part of this global universe of stakeholders. The media have three roles as I see it, to put it very simply. The first one is showcasing the potential of ocean knowledge into those solutions that it can be developed into. And this, I mean, for example, just to stay on with the COVID topic, it's the ocean from very early on. Ocean microbes and ocean marine genomes have been crucial, not just to developing the rapid COVID tests, but also to finding pathways to the COVID vaccine. Now, this is very little reported, but these are solutions that rely directly on our role and our knowledge about the ocean. Then the media have a role of driving those solutions. It's, introducing them to the markets, highlighting the opportunities for investment and for scaling up that are out there for the different solutions that already exist. And finally, and perhaps one of the biggest roles that media have in bringing about the ocean we want is broadening the engagement. Really, media hold the power to shock, amaze, connect humans. And I don't think we should underestimate that. Through the stories you tell, the photography you display across your different, whether you're online or print media, you have that power every day and you use it for good. So why not turn to ocean, where we can have just an amazing source of emotional, inspiring images and videos, which already exist, whether coming from award-winning photographers. You have lots of National Geographic underwater photography competitions. So the resources are out there. I think what we're really missing is connecting communities. It's connecting the media to those photographers, media to those image banks of underwater images, to those stories and the people making those stories. So what stories can media tell about the ocean? And my angle here is that ocean stories don't just belong in the environmental sections of newspapers, magazines, and so on. We have ocean stories everywhere. They already exist, and they cover, as many content areas as you can see it, for example, on the front page of the New York Times. You can have a business story, what does ocean represent for the corporate world? And for example, Maersk, big shipping company, has recently deployed, I think, pretty much all of its shipping fleet for carrying and deploying ocean observing equipment to make sure that we have a wide array of ocean observations, even when a lot of research vessels were stuck on land because of the COVID pandemic. You have a government story. What about how does the ocean come into countries as they start developing their plans for how to grow their economies, how to tap into these really huge potential of the blue economy? You have a health story, which I mentioned before about COVID. You have a style story, which is about, among other things, fashion and how the power of ecological brands is rising, and using the ocean to showcase those different solutions. And you have a story about arts and culture, And it's about the archaeology. It's about the role of the ocean to inspire not just our thoughts about the future, but also to reassess our stories and history of our shared civilization. And there's many more, of course. These are just few examples. But just to make the case that we have to stop thinking about ocean and even about the environment in general as a purely environmental issue. It's a global, it's a societal issue.